Dr. DeGruy, and I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing that correctly.
That is correct. That is correct.
We want to look at education and the structuring of class and population control, looking at a history of the Black Studies Department and why there was a need for Black Studies in the first place. So I would like for you, if you would, to talk to us a bit about the purpose of education in the first place, and if you could kind of address the philosophical and psychological aspects of shaping one's worldview in the context of mind control and human possibility.
Okay, I'm going to really try to remember all that, and if I get off kilter, you can kind of draw me back. First of all, looking at the purpose of education, I think the purpose of education in any society is to facilitate the development of a mature mind. I think that that's the goal, that's the focus, to bring a person into an awareness of their full humanness. Mm-hmm. As it relates to the structuring of classes and controlling the minds of the people, the education that we receive is reflective of the dominant society's or the dominant culture's worldview. As it relates to African American people, I think ultimately, when you look at the history of how we have been folded into the curriculum, as we've been folded into, if you will, American history, it's certainly not a positive picture. And that not being a positive picture, we have to take a look at that. And then we can understand what the motivations are, or why, or how African American children, in particular, youth, adults in the educational system, have been controlled. Well, fundamentally, Europeans had to somehow make okay their oppression. They had to make okay their aggression. They had to make okay their theft, their rape. And the way that they did that was to fold it into a level of normalcy in an educational arena, which suggested that these people, meaning African American people, were deserving of such treatment. That somehow African American people, or people of African descent, Africans, were lacking what Europeans had as it related to intelligence, morality, physical capacity, spirituality, even having a soul. All these things were questioned by people, that various individuals within the educational system. When I think about, John Newton, who penned the Amazing Grace, right. and as we look at his behavior, again, this is an individual that said that Black people were without souls and thus not destined for the next life, which then, in his mind, I imagine, justified his raping girls and women on slave ships. You see, so you look at that behavior, and then you look at statements by Carl von Linné, a preeminent biologist, best known, said to be the father of anthropology, who is best known for the classification of species and genus and phylum, all of the things that we know as it relates to biological classification. He then put in the 1700s into the pot his notion of race classification. And of course, fundamentally, this becomes part of our education, because Carl von Linné becomes someone that's unavoidable if you study high school biology, for example. And what he suggests is that we are by nature, by a fact of science, inferior, that we are lustful, cunning, lazy, governed by caprice. These are the things he said were inherent, scientifically proven qualities of people of African descent. So one has to ask, why would he say such a thing? Well, you're talking about 1777, we're talking about a period of time when American chattel slavery was existing in the country. And again, we have to ease the mind and the conscience, not only of white Americans, but of those looking on at America, so that they too can feel comfortable with this peculiar institution called slavery. So then it moves along a continuum, and so those individuals in various branches of science, of literature, begin to throw their parts into it to ease the public conscience, society's conscience. Now, I haven't spoken about what that does to the African. I'm talking about what that education has done to rest the mind and conscience of white people, to allow them to go to church on Sunday and not feel any guilt, to allow them to barter, to sell away little children and to rape little girls, and for that to somehow be okay when I sing hymns on Sunday. Those are the things that I'm talking about, that you begin to, that's the structural racism that exists to maintain the population who is doing the oppressing. These people are the ones we want to continue to feel good about it because we profit by it. Because, you know, by and large, African enslavement was about money and power. So now we have to look at these people that now they're here. And they have, been freed. And what happens upon freeing these people that you have consistently demonized, dehumanized, victimized, and oppressed? How do you coexist? And some, like Thomas Jefferson, didn't believe it was possible to coexist. Suggests that they should be moved way beyond, back to Africa, away from the memory, the 10,000 recollections, to quote him, of what has been done to them. Mm-hmm. That he believed would end up causing the extermination of one or the other race, white or black. He didn't believe they could coexist because we'd remember what was done to us. So what do? You erase the memory. And education in America has done just that. They have placed us in history in a way that allows them to seem favorable. Case in point, the Negro problem. The Negro problem, which was part of the white man's burden, they kind of reframed this whole enslavement issue by saying, we're just trying to civilize you. Mm-hmm. Do you see? So again, we have to understand how that operates systemically. So now what we're saying in an educational arena is that basically this whole idea of enslavement was for your own good. Mm-hmm. And then we have to now we've already convinced white people of that so that they can, again, go to church on Sunday. And I say that deliberately because that's in fact what they did. After lynchings, after rapes, they went to church, you know. So we have to understand, how does one reconcile that inconsistency with considering oneself superior and yet behaving in a barbaric way?